Yay. Everybody wave at Lucas. Funny. Oh, wait. That was just a knock at the door, wasn't it? Ah, there he is. I do see him. All right. Hello, Lucas. I probably won't see you if you try and talk to me because I get sucked into my lesson, but at least you can follow along. All right, let's make this little and pop it up here. Okay, so we're gonna start early because we have to box up birds, and the less time the birds are in boxes by themselves without food and water, the better. Since I have to drive them all the way up to like this lady that got us the eggs and stuff, she lives up by like Drew Campground, so it's a bit of a drive. They should be okay for like 2-3 hours, but yeah, I mean, for you to get them home is fine. So they'll be all right. I just wouldn't leave them in there forever. Besides, they're going to poop all over the box too. Well, you can't prevent that. That's what they're going to do. All right. So that lab was good, right? We have how many more lessons? Like 2, really? Yep. And then we're going to do reviews, and yep. So be prepared. And my favorite topic is next week. The one I like to teach the most because you squirm. I love watching you squirm. I live for it. All right. So it is. It's my favorite because y'all get crazy. You should know what it is. What is with you? No. Endocrine and reproductive is next week. That it? Yeah, we can go over here. No, I slip. All right, we're good. We're good. All right, so our circulatory system is where we're starting. And what is the function of our circulatory system? It's to transport 2 main things. Barrett, what do we got?
Blood and oxygen.
Oxygen is one. And what's the other thing that our blood is transporting? I'll go with Drew.
Immune system.
Nutrients is what we're looking for. Yeah, and immune stuff is involved as well. So blood and nutrients. Why is this tray? Hold on, I can't give anybody. Sorry. Oh, I'm throwing things today. It's just that kind of a day, apparently. Thank you, Kenna. Thank you. All right. So yes, blood and oxygen and nutrients, which are going through the blood. Very good. All right. Now, it also is going to remove waste from our tissues, and it's going to work. Stop throwing things. It's going to work with the immune system to protect against illnesses. Who doesn't love Dwight, right? Your love keeps me alive. False. Your circulatory system and nervous system keep you alive. I'm dropping our temperature. It got warm in here. And I can't deal with warm. Come on. Yeah, assistant to the region. Assistant to the not assistant regional manager, assistant to the regional manager. All right, so let's talk about the heart. What's the name of the muscle? Not the type of muscle, but the name of the muscle that contracts to pump blood throughout your body. Do you know, Kenneth?
Yes,
myocardium. Very good. So your myocardium is what is going to contract to pump blood throughout your body. And in 1 year, your human body can pump enough blood to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So if you've ever watched the Olympics, that's a lot of blood, like a whole lot of blood. So your heart is very busy, right? Very active and very busy. So what is the name for the upper chambers of the heart? These are what receive blood from the body. Caitlin, is that your hand? Nope, Claire?
Atrium.
Those are your atria, or atrium is singular. Atria is going to be plural. So you have a right and left. And if you notice, you kind of have a partition that goes down the middle of the heart. You have a right side and a left side, right? So your atria are at the top. And what are the chambers that do the pumping, the big pumping? Ken again. Those are your ventricles, right? And you have a right and left ventricle as well. All right, now, what's your largest blood vessel in your body? Barrett. Your aorta. And it is going to take your oxygen-rich blood from your heart and pump it out to your body, and then it will branch off from there. Now, there are people that can have a condition called an aortic dissection where they get a little tear in their aorta. That is catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic if that happens. You can get an itty bitty tear and maybe be okay if they fix it. But if it's at all a decent sized tear, you're probably not even going to realize that it happens because you will just be out like that, right? Because this takes blood to the rest of your body. All right, now, whoops, I hit that. Valves are what are between your atria and your ventricles. They're also going to your pulmonary, going to and coming from your pulmonary arteries. So you'll find valves as well. And here are the valves. So you've got the first valve if blood is coming into your heart. What's the first valve that the blood is going to come in contact with? It's going to come in to your right atrium, and then it's going to come in contact with which valve? It's between your right and left. I mean, your right atria and your right ventricle. That's your, you see it? Tricuspid valve, right? Okay, now your tricuspid valve, we can guess something about it, what it looks like based on its name. So what do you suppose it looks like?
It's 3 parts too.
3 parts. What do the parts look like?
Oh, 3 tubes.
Tricuspid.
Oh, they're like cup shaped.
Not cups.
Valves.
What's the proper name for your canine? Cuspid. What's the shape of your canine tooth?
Right.
Yes. So it's 3 pointy things. 3. It's almost like it's like a what? Yes, like a third in fractions. Exactly. Yes, Isabella, like a third in fractions. Think of it that way. If you were doing a little pie chart, right? So then it'll be in your right ventricle and it's gonna get pumped through a pulmonary valve. It's gonna go off to your lungs. It's gonna come back. And then it's got to come back into the heart. And then when it gets into the left atrium, it's got to go through this valve, which is your what? Mitral valve into your left ventricle. All right. Now, there's a little highly innervated portion of your heart that is responsible for setting your pace, your heart rate. What's that called? Does anybody know? You know, Kenna?
Synovial.
Yes, it's your SA node. Yeah. So we call it the SA node, and it's that little guy right there. Now, what happens if that starts giving you problems?
Your heart doesn't beat.
It doesn't beat right.
Cardiac arrest.
You can have cardiac arrest. What else? Arrhythmia is a good word for it. Arrhythmia meaning not normal rhythm, right? What do they do for that?
Pacemaker.
Pacemaker. Anybody know anybody who's got a pacemaker?
My grandmother had one.
Yeah. They're really cool now because they're like Bluetoothed. Like they didn't used to be for real. They used to just pop it in and like good luck and it'll just kind of beat. But now they actually communicate with apps on your phone and directly to your doctor. And they can like tell your doctor, your cardiologist, like how your heart's beating. The technology has gotten really, really good.
My grandmother had one and like she had a heart attack one time and it signaled her doctor.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Like tiny little radio.
They have all kinds of wild stuff that they do now that uses the communication, the aspect that we didn't have before. So now we have apps and things for implanted stuff that talk to our doctors. It is pretty wild. I remember, does anybody remember when Nancy Guthrie went missing? Savannah Guthrie's mom went missing. Savannah Guthrie's a Today Show anchor. They never found her.
Oh,
Savannah Guthrie's mom. It was like right after Christmas, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, in Arizona, like she went missing, and they had mentioned that she had a pacemaker, and multiple people were like, use the pacemaker to help find her. And they weren't able to do it because there are certain limitations on the pacemaker, but people were suggesting that you could use a pacemaker to find somebody who has been kidnapped because she was kidnapped from her house. We still don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, wasn't that like the whole Scientology thing?
It may have been like for a while. They looked at all the family members. They never really found anybody to nail it down to. It was just very sad. Like she's an elderly woman and there's video of the person coming to her Ring doorbell. Like they're completely covered. You can't tell if it's a man or a woman. You can't tell their race. You can't tell anything. And they took this old lady out of her house and she's gone. She's still gone. It's crazy. But people were suggesting use her pacemaker to help find her. So it was interesting. So if you were to see a heartbeat, beating, this can show you, and if you look closely, you'll actually see the mitral and tricuspid valves. And the mitral valve just has 2 flaps, whereas that tricuspid, like we said, is 3. Maybe. Here it goes. So it's going to dissect it from various angles so you can see what's going on from different angles here. So there's your tricuspid and your mitral. Very clearly there, right? So the purpose of those valves is to keep blood from flowing backwards. Does anybody know what a heart murmur is? Does anybody have a heart murmur? Do you know?
My dad has.
Your dad has one. I have one. You have one? Or you know something?
Don't quite close correctly.
Yeah, they don't quite close correctly, and it makes instead of that lub dub, you get like it's supposed to be lub dub. You get like a little offbeat sound. So does anybody know what can cause a heart murmur? Like
Genetic.
it can be genetic, it can be congenital, it can also be strep. If you get a really bad strep infection, it can damage your heart valves, which is what happened to me. So I had two back-to-back strep infections. And then I was at a doctor and she goes, "How long have you had this heart murmur?" And I said, "What heart murmur?" And that was just months after I had the strep infections. But so I had to have an echocardiogram where they go in and they like scan your heart. So yeah, it's really kind of neat. But I actually have a little backflow. So both my mitral and tricuspid valve have a little black wash. They don't quite get everything each time. But it's fine. I mean, I'm fine. It's benign. It's not going to hurt me, but it's really interesting. It was fun to watch because I could see my heart and all of its workings on the screen.
My girl had a heart murmur because of strep.
Because of strep. Yep. Yeah. And strep, like back in the day, it could get really bad. Like it can cause major damage. And that's why, like, for some people who have really bad heart murmurs or heart conditions, they have to go on prophylactic antibiotics before they go to the dentist because strep lives in your mouth, certain kinds of strep. And if they, open up your gums or something while they're cleaning your mouth and that strep gets into your bloodstream and then it gets to your heart, it can do further damage. So they put people on antibiotics before getting a cleaning or a filling to help prevent that from happening. All right, so you've got oxygen poor blood that's coming from your body. It's been used. And where does it go first? It's going to go to your right atrium. And then where is it going to go? From your right atrium to, Isabella? Somewhere first. Right atrium to right ventricle. And then it's going to go to, yes, to your lungs through your pulmonary arteries, correct. All right, and then you've got your oxygen-rich blood. It's going to come from your lungs. And which chamber of your heart is it going into? So it's going to go into your left atrium. And from there, it's going to go to your left ventricle. And then it's going to go to your biggest blood vessel, which is your everybody, aorta, and then to your body, right? Okay. Now, Isabella brings up the interesting point, and we're about to look at this. So typically, when we draw hearts, for one thing, when we diagram hearts, when you're looking at this heart, you're looking at it as if it was in a person's chest, and the left and right are oriented to the user, an owner and operator of the heart, okay? So when you're looking at it, you're labeling the right side as left and the left side as right. Does that make sense? Because if Ridley's looking at me, like this is my right side of my heart, but that's left to her, right? But we use it by the owner and operator. So the owner and operator is how you're going to label the heart. Now, we also typically show deoxygenated blood and those vessels in blue. And what do we typically call the vessels that carry deoxygenated blood? Veins. And what do we typically call the vessels that carry oxygenated blood? Arteries. Okay, but the exception is what? Pulmonary veins and arteries. Okay, so you don't want to think of veins as carrying deoxygenated blood and arteries as carrying oxygenated blood. You want to think of veins as going to the heart and arteries as coming from the heart. And the reason for that is because the vessel that carries blood from your heart to your lungs to be oxygenated is an artery, even though it contains deoxygenated blood. And the vessel that carries blood from your lungs to your heart that is freshly oxygenated is a vein because it's coming to your heart. So you always want to think of them that way. Arteries come from your heart, veins go to your heart. All right, so here's a graphic. It's a nice kind of broken down, easy to see graphic. So let's start at this person's toes. All right. So down here at their toes, we have little capillaries and we have an area where our blood is going to get deoxygenated because your tissues in the tip of your toe need some oxygen. All right. So, and all their nutrients and that stuff, it's all getting used. So it's going to come out and it's going to go into a series of venules, then veins, and then it's going to go into one of these two, vena cavae being plural if you're talking about both. You have a superior vena cava, which is the top one. It takes blood from the top of your body to your heart, and an inferior vena cava, which takes blood from the bottom of the body to the heart. So the superior vena cava is primarily getting blood that's been used where? Yeah, a lot, your brain, your head, this whole upper part of your body, right? And then everything else is coming through your inferior vena cava. So these two, whoop, and they go into the heart, all right? So now we're going into the heart. And it falls into which chamber first, everybody? Right atrium. Through this tricuspid valve into the where? Right ventricle. Now, your ventricles are going to pump harder than your atria because your atria is collecting and pumping into the ventricle, but the ventricles are pumping it out of the heart somewhere, okay? So it's going to go out of the heart and into this vessel that goes to the lung, which is a what? It leaves the heart, so it's an artery, even though it's deoxygenated. It's a pulmonary artery. It goes to the lungs. It gets oxygenated. Then it comes through a pulmonary vein because it's going to the heart, even though it's oxygenated. These are your exceptions. These two vessels are your exceptions. So then it's going to fall into which chamber? The left atrium. And it's going to go through that mitral valve into the left ventricle, and then it gets pumped to the aorta and out through the rest of the body. Which of your four chambers is doing the hardest pumping?
Right ventricle?
Not right ventricle. Good guess. Left ventricle, because where's it pumping to? The whole body. Okay, so the most pressure, like when you hear your heart bump, bump, the bigger bump, that's your left ventricle doing its job, right? It's working very hard. About how long do you think it takes for a single red blood cell to circle your whole body? What do you think?
2 seconds?
2 seconds? Anybody else got a guess?
7 seconds.
7 seconds. What do you think?
I guess like 5 minutes.
5 minutes? 10 seconds?
5.
4 seconds?
20?
Oh, on the nail. 20 seconds. There you go. 20 seconds for a single red blood cell to circle your whole body. All right, that's pretty fast. That's 3 times a minute. Like, those little suckers are moving along. All right, so what do we typically show in red? What vessels do we typically show in red? Everybody? Arteries are typically shown in red, and they carry blood from the heart to the tissues, in most cases oxygenated, except for the pulmonary artery, right? So, what are the smallest of vessels, and they join your arteries and veins?
Capillary.
Capillaries, right? And who remembers what capillary action is? We talked about it in physical science. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this year. What's capillary action? Does anybody know? Anybody remember? You remember?
It's where, well, when we do it in lab, it's water and it likes to stick to stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to do with hydrogen bonds and everything. You know why when you remember when you look at a graduated cylinder and you measure from the bottom of the meniscus, it's making that curve because the water likes to stick to the side. So if you go to the doctor and they poke your finger, right, and they use that little tube and they just touch it to the drop of blood and it sucks up, that's capillary action. That's actually called a little capillary tube. It's capillary action. So basically, it has to do with surface tension and at cohesion between those molecules in the water. And that's how capillaries work, basically. They're very, very tiny, but everything's trying to stick together as it moves through them, right? That's kind of how they work. And what is typically shown in blue, everybody? Veins, and they're carrying blood from the body to the heart, usually deoxygenated with the exception of the pulmonary vein. Right, okay, we got it. Now, there's your artery versus your vein. Now, we just talked about this in lab. Your artery has 3 layers, your vein has 3 layers, but your artery is much thicker, right? Much more muscular, much thicker. And your vein has valves, which you talked about in lab, right? So you can see structurally they are different. Which of these has the highest pressure, do you think? Isabella? Arteries have much higher pressure, right? They're taking blood that's coming right out of the heart. It's getting pumped hard. They need to be elastic. They need to stretch. That's why their walls are thicker like that. They have more pressure. So your arteries are your biggest vessels coming from the heart. What are your second biggest? Do you know?
Vein.
Not your veins. We're not there yet. So these are called arterioles. Oops. And then venules. And then, whoops. Hello. And then veins. So you can think of it like a tree forwards and backwards. So if your aorta is your trunk of your tree, if you're going up, then your branches are your veins, and or branches are your veins, and your little limbs on your branches are going to be, well, I just said that wrong. I'm sorry. Start over. If you've got your aorta is your trunk, then your branches are your arteries. Your little limbs off the branches are your arterioles to get down to the itty bitty bitty parts. And that would be like where your capillaries are. And if it was next to another tree and those little itty bitty twigs were touching each other, then you'd have it going in the reverse. So your little twiggy things would be, little twiggy branches would be your venules, and then your veins would be your big branches, and then you'd have like your vena cava would be your trunk, right? So it's basically mirror image of each other. All right. So when you look at your skin, what color are your veins?
Blue.
Why? Why are they blue?
They don't have oxygen.
They don't have oxygen. What else do we think? What color is your blood if you bleed? Red. So is it always red?
No.
No, yes. We have an argument. What color is the blood of a horseshoe crab? That's blue for sure. So, okay, why are your veins blue? All right, this girl does a great job explaining it. She has a lovely accent, which makes it very pleasant. She does in that red shirt. It's her pleasure to explain to you why your veins are blue. Maybe. Hello. Oh, we're gonna get commercials.
We had a really mean Chick-fil-A worker.
Never. Say it ain't so. Oh, she got in. Good for her.
Match day.
Why are we not loading?
You go.
What's up, mama? There we go. For real.
Well, she can have you.
Technician, or simply
Why
take
is it
pride in
jumping?
maintaining your own cars.
Hello. Here we go. Maybe.
Hello, I'm Nurse. I'm
What is up with you?
a member of the Life Science
Okay, stop it, Neris.
team here at Bristol, and today we're going to try and answer the question, why are your veins blue? Let's start.
Hold on.
You're gonna try.
She's gonna try and talk, but she ain't gonna do a good job.
Thinking about what's in your veins. Blood is flowing through your body.
Hold on. Pause you for a second. Buffer.
It's very important. It carries lots of different chemicals needed throughout our bodies.
Hold on. Neris is not being helpful. Maybe. What is going on? I wonder if my internet is being. No, then it's terrible. It's not that.
Hello.
It's just.
Remember,
What in the world, Neris? Hello.
I'm a member of the Life Science team here.
We know. You've said it 3 times, honey. Oh, no. Oh, that's not true. It's plugged in. What are we kidding? Oh, no, don't crash. Hold on. Why is it being stupid? It is. Okay.
Here at Bristol, and today we're going to try and answer
Now
the
she's working.
question, why are your veins blue? Let's start thinking about what's in your veins. Blood is flowing through your body. Blood is very important. It carries lots of different chemicals needed throughout our bodies, including one of the most important, oxygen. That oxygen is carried by a chemical that's called hemoglobin, which is in your red blood cells.
Yes.
That hemoglobin binds to the oxygen, giving you the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is in your veins and in your arteries. These are slightly different kinds of blood vessels. Arteries carry the blood that's coming away from your heart that's just been pumped, and veins carry blood back into your heart. So arteries tend to be carrying more oxygen in them. They're carrying the blood coming from the lungs, which is oxygenated. And the veins are carrying the blood back after they've lost their oxygen to the cells that need them. So they have deoxygenated blood.
Most of the
Hemoglobin,
time.
without the oxygen bound to it, absorbs more red light. So the blood in your veins will look much darker than the blood in your arteries. Blood in your arteries reflects more red light and appears a brighter red. But that doesn't explain why your veins are blue, because actually your veins aren't blue. They might look blue when you see them through your skin. That's because you're seeing this darker blood, and also you're looking at it next to your skin, which is also reflecting some red light. So there's a bit of an optical illusion going on there as well. But you'll notice that your blood never comes out blue if you cut yourself, even if it's on a vein. It will always be red blood that comes out. Your blood is always red, just maybe slightly different shade. This illusion can be used to look at by our machine here, the vein viewer. These are used by doctors and nurses in hospitals. They use them to find where your veins are. This would be really useful if you've got tricky to find veins for blood tests, or putting in an intravenous drip, anything like that. This doesn't use red light, it uses something similar, near infrared light. This is light that we can't actually see, but it's close to red light in the spectrum. So this machine gives out lots of near infrared light, and that light is absorbed more by your veins than it is by your arteries. And this detects the reflections, so it can see where that light's been reflected, where it's been absorbed. And it uses that to figure out where your veins are and to project an image of them onto your own hand. So you can put your hand underneath and you can see dark patches where your veins are, where that light has been absorbed. So we ask the question, why are your veins blue? And the answer is they're not really, but the same kind of optical illusion that makes them look blue through your skin can actually be used in machines like our vein viewer, making it a lot easier for your medical professionals to help you guys.
There, now you know. They're not really blue, even though you look blue.
Kind of accent play on.
She's got a Hermione vibe that I kind of like. Yeah. All right.
That's the kind of accent play on.
There you go. So how many liters of blood in your body? 10? So you're looking at 4 to 6. So if you think about a 2-liter bottle of soda, 2 to 3 of those, right? That's it. Yeah, that's a lot though, still. All right, and what are the components of your blood? So you're going to have plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And then along with that, you'll also have like nutrients and there's things like that. Now, when you go and they do the little finger pokey thing and they suck it up in that little tube, what do they do with it next? Does anybody know what they do? Do you know?
They put it in a
Spinner.
The spinner thing, yeah. It's a centrifuge. Yep. So first they stick the tube in a little, like it's like a little pad and it's putty. They put a little putty in the end to seal the tube. And then they put it in a centrifuge. And that centrifuge will use that force to separate the components of your blood by density. So what you'll get is your red blood cells at the bottom, something they call buffy coat, which is your white blood cells and your platelets, and then your plasma at the top. And then they can look at this and by percentage tell whether or not you have potentially anemia, right? You don't have enough red blood cells, you don't have enough hemoglobin going on, you don't have enough iron. It all relates to the same thing. Iron is a component of hemoglobin, so you need it. So that's what they're doing. And they call it your hematocrit. Hematocrit is the percentage of your red blood cells right there to the rest of your blood components. So that's what it looks like after they take that little tube away. So interestingly, you would obviously want to sterilize and process this first, but young coconut milk is a good replacement for blood plasma. And they found this out in dire conditions in World War II in India when blood supplies were running low. They went for that and went with young coconut milk. Interesting, right? I wouldn't just do that, but you know, if you're gonna die and you can sterilize it, maybe that's an option. But it's interesting, right? Desperate times call for desperate measures is all I can say.
Let's try.
Yeah, let's try this. I don't know. Oh, he's lost a lot of blood. Let's try this. I don't know. That's pretty wild. So your blood again is composed of your plasma, your platelets. Your fluid component is the plasma, and it has your nutrients. It also has your water. You can absolutely increase your blood volume by hydrating. Like if you know you're going to have a blood draw in the morning, you should drink a lot the day before and then like pound water on your way to the doctor, right? Makes it easier for them to get your vein, makes it easier for them to get blood out of you, right? Anybody ever tried that trick? Like that's my trick.
my doctor, when I've had it done, they actually tell you to.
Yeah, they tell you drink a lot of water. Now, the problem is when you have to go in for surgery and you can't have anything to drink. That's why I got stabbed so many times back in February and March. That's why I took like 5 sticks the first time because I just didn't have enough fluid in me, even though I drank the whole day before.
It's also fun because if you have surgery later in the day,
Oh yeah.
they ask for a urine sample, except you haven't had any water for like 12 hours.
Yeah, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, I can't pee.
What do you want me to do?
I'm all done. Yeah, it ain't gonna be a thing. All right. So, which blood cells carry your hemoglobin and transport oxygen? Yeah, you're red. Very good. These are your red blood cells. What's the word for red blood cells? The actual scientific word. Do we know? It's erythrocyte. Okay. And then what fights infection? Those are your white blood cells. And what's the word for those? Does anybody know? Leukocytes. So erythro means red. Erythrocyte. Leuco means white. Like a leucistic bird is like an albino bird. Right? So there you go. So white blood cells would be your leukocytes. All right, so your platelets are important because if you get a little tear in a blood vessel, this is what's going to do your clotting, right? If you don't have your platelets, then you lose the clotting factor, then you got some issues and you'll just bleed. And nobody wants to do that, right? So let's talk briefly about lymphatic system, all right? So this works kind of in concert with your circulatory system, but it is somewhat separate. So you have fluid and it contains important nutrients and sometimes microorganisms. Your lymphatic system is, it works with your immune system. So microorganisms can get in it, can get out of it, all that kind of thing. But it's also like when people have cancer that metastasizes, like it starts in one place and ends up in another, it's usually the lymphatic system that's involved in that, which is why they check lymph nodes when they're checking cancer. They will check lymph nodes for cancer because lymph nodes do the filtering. So you may find cancer cells there. So let's say you have liver cancer and then suddenly it's in your brain. What kind of cells are they going to find in your brain?
Liver cells.
Liver cells. Yeah, cancerous mutated liver cells.
It attacks your brain because it's recognized the part of
it can go anywhere. Go brain, bone. Like my uncle had kidney cancer. It ended up in his brain, in his spine, in his hips, and everywhere.
That way it attacks it because it recognizes that.
Your immune system doesn't know how to deal with it. It doesn't recognize it necessarily as something it knows how to deal with once it gets beyond its initial. I mean, everybody has cancer like every day, but your immune system handles most of it. Like just you have a cell that goes wrong and your body goes, okay, and just fixes it. You know, maybe not every day, but we've all done it. We've all had it. And your immune system took care of it. But sometimes it gets beyond your immune system and it just can't, at that point, can't be helped. So it's filtered through your lymph nodes. That's why, like when you get sick, you can feel them right here. Mm-hmm.
This is going back to the whole cancer thing, but since it's like an immune system thing, do you think a couple like 100 years down the road we could have like a built up immunity towards different kinds of like radioactive cancer?
Again, maybe not the radioactive so much, but certainly some other types. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll be able. We're getting really close to figuring a lot of it out. It is very sad though that it is such a monster. Like one of the last conversations I had with my uncle is he said, I don't understand this. He said, you know, we can put people on the moon. We've got smartphones in our pockets. I mean, look at the stuff we can do, but we can't fight this monster that's been eating us alive since the dawn of man. And it's a good point. It's a very good point. So it's filtered by your lymph nodes. And if you look, there's this little guy right here in the middle. It's called a cisterna chyli. It's interesting. That's like kind of your central filtration point. What's a cistern? Does anybody know what a cistern is? Do you know?
It's like a well type of.
Yeah, it's a container of some kind, a tank, right? Chyli refers to a type of lymph that's like a fatty lipid-based lymph. So this is where it collects. So you have lymph nodes everywhere. You've had this thing, right? Where you go to the doctor and they feel your lymph nodes and they're sore and they get swollen when you get sick. You ever had them like in your armpits? Like the COVID shot did that to me. My armpit, like, oh, all the lymph nodes in my armpit got sore. But you've got lymph nodes everywhere, in your groin, down in your legs. And see how they're kind of in your joint areas and your knees and elbows. So you've got them everywhere. And that's where your filtering goes on. Good lymph gets returned back to your blood and through that whole system. Now, this is interesting. All right, we're going to watch the first one and we're going to take it with a grain of salt, and then we're going to listen to Hank and see what he has to say about it. But this has to do with tattoos and the lymphatic system. It's very interesting, okay? We get an ad.
You're a professional technician, or simply take pride in maintaining your own cups.
Ariano Delena runs a tight ship. His studio is inspected by health officials, and he pays close attention to the ever-changing variety and quality of inks on the market, always on the lookout for pigments that don't fade or cause skin reactions in his customers.
Some tattooers, they start developing a safer ink that it heals faster.
But healing doesn't tell the whole story about tattoo pigments. Scientists have long suspected they affect lymph nodes, the glands critical to the immune system. So researchers used new ultramicroscopic X-ray technology to analyze lymph node tissue from 4 deceased donors with tattoos. The team found nanoparticles, nickel, chromium, manganese, and cobalt, all found in the tattoos themselves.
We actually have a proof that also the contaminations are still in the body after healing of the tattoos, and not just in the tattoo inks.
The nanoparticles are about 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter or smaller.
First of all, we're going to get your consent.
This Edmonton dermatologist says it's not clear if those nanoparticles are dangerous.
I think it's a little early to make any absolute conclusions. So I wouldn't raise alarm bells quite yet.
Part of the problem with trying to examine the effects of tattoo pigments is that they continue to evolve, and much of the chemistry is unknown.
There is such a broad art to tattooing that people will seek out new and different techniques. So I think over time that will make it a bit more complex to know what the implications are. So I think a lot more study and attention is warranted.
It's estimated 20% of adults in Canada have tattoos, even more for younger adults. Despite their growing popularity, Health Canada neither approves nor checks the safety of pigments. That's up to the tattoo industry. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
So the picture below that is a dissected lymph node from someone who did have tattoos. No, that's tattoo ink in a lymph node. So we know it gets there. Now, then there was a study that came out just within like the last 2 years that said that tattoos increase your risk of lymphoma, which is lymph node cancer, lymphatic system cancer. Okay, now Hank has an opinion about that. We all love
This
Hank.
one is infuriating.
If you
That's
have a
his opinion.
tattoo, or you know somebody that has a tattoo, listen up. This is really important.
Delightfully engagement bait way of starting a video. If you have a tattoo or know someone who does.
This study was just out in May 2024. 21% increase in the risk of lymphoma.
Where is this man? Is this his home? So 20% increase in the risk of lymphoma if you have a tattoo. I mean, I can have some immediate context to add. It's very easy to hear 21% increase in risk, and instead your brain interprets that as a 21% risk, like a 1 in 5 chance. You're starting with a very low risk, and then that risk is increasing by 21%. And if you start with a risk of 1%, then it's going to be 1.2%. 0.1%, then it's going to be a risk of 0.12%. So one thing we want to look at is what the lifetime risk of lymphoma is. So we're going basically from this 0.02 chance of getting lymphoma in your life to a 0.024 chance, which isn't nothing. That's like important society-wide. If this is a real effect, that would be epidemiologically important. Now you might be thinking, Hank, you had lymphoma and you have a tattoo. Is this a concern of yours? Honestly, I thought about it. I got my lymphoma on the opposite side of my body from my tattoo, which actually does matter. This tattooing would have been delivered to these lymph nodes, and this lymph nodes are the ones that had the cancer. So it's extremely unlikely that my tattoo had anything to do with my cancer. And I just saw a lot of people talking about this study, and it worried me the extent to which it was being discussed. Like it was just going to cause a lot of anxiety unnecessarily.
So, good point. Is there an increased risk? Yeah, a little bit. Is it epidemiologically important? Could be, but overall, the risk itself is still very low, right? So interesting.
This one.
Yeah, we heard your brain. Okay, so now we're gonna sum up the circulatory system with our favorite amoeba sisters, right?
It is powerful. Moving through moments that test
this man?
I know, where is this man?
Did you have breakfast this morning? Did you ever wonder after you eat breakfast and your food is digested, how is that glucose getting transported around your body? Or as you take a breath in, how does that oxygen get transported around? Or when you exhale, how does that carbon dioxide get transferred out? Are these only questions I ponder during breakfast? Maybe.
Yes.
But your circulatory system is absolutely fascinating and highly involved in this. In this short intro video of the circulatory system, we will mention some basics about its functions and trace the pathway of how blood travels through your heart. But please know before we get started, there are gigantic textbooks on the circulatory system itself. So obviously this video is just an intro. We're going to first talk about blood, the medium of how we transport glucose and gases. As we mentioned in our body systems intro video from many years ago, there are some misconceptions. Human blood is red, and always red, although the shade of red can vary based on how much oxygen is in the blood. Veins and arteries are often drawn in diagrams as blue or red to show whether they have lower or higher concentrations of oxygen. But that's just how it is used in most diagrams. It doesn't mean the blood or the veins or the arteries are actually that color. Veins that you see under your skin may look blue or green, but that involves the way they appear under the skin, and the reason for this would make a great physics topic, but I digress. Human blood has a lot of functions. It maintains a certain pH, temperature, osmotic pressure. All of this is very important for homeostasis. It transports things like hormones, nutrients, and gases, and it's made up of different components. One component includes plasma, the liquid portion. Water, proteins, salts, lipids, you'll find them in this liquid portion of blood known as plasma. Another component includes cellular components. This means red blood cells, which do the transporting of gases, white blood cells, which can fight infections, and platelets, which are actually cellular fragments, and they're involved with helping your blood clot. Very important when there is damage to the body. Red blood cells have an iron-containing protein called hemoglobin, and that is where the red coloring of blood comes from. So when we're talking about blood and we're just introing the circulatory system, we're going to focus on how this blood moves around in the human body. Human heart anatomy observes the heart divided into two distinct and separated partitions, a deoxygenated or low oxygen partition and an oxygenated partition. There are some human congenital heart conditions that can result in this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood mixing, however. More on that at the end. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Think A for away. Arteries are typically oxygen rich, but there are exceptions. Veins generally carry blood to the heart. Veins typically are oxygen poor, but there are exceptions. Capillaries are small blood vessels, and it is at the capillary level where oxygen is delivered to organs and tissues and where carbon dioxide will be picked up to travel back to the lungs. So looking at this heart, the right side, and that's the person's right, so for you it will look opposite, pumps deoxygenated blood, and the left side pumps oxygenated blood. We can also see four chambers, the right atrium and right ventricle, and the left atrium and the left ventricle. I like to remember that A comes before V in the alphabet, so that helps me remember that A's for atria are at the top of the heart, V for ventricles are at the bottom of the heart. Atria also have thinner walls than the thicker wall of ventricles. The heart also contains valves, which we'll see when we get to tracing the pathway of blood. The valves are one-way structures that help separate the chambers and also prevent backflow of blood. Ready to take the adventure of a lifetime? An adventure tracing the pathway of blood through the heart? We're going to start with blood that is in a human toe. This blood is deoxygenated. It needs to get to the heart so that it can be pumped to the lungs to pick up oxygen and then be spread throughout the body. It's going to get there through the vena cava, inferior vena cava to be specific, as the superior vena cava is above the heart. The blood enters the right atrium. The right atrium contracts, pushing the blood through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The right ventricle contracts, pumping the blood through the pulmonary valve to the pulmonary artery. By the way, when you see the word pulmonary, it likely involves lungs. The pulmonary artery takes blood to the lungs. The lungs are where red blood cells in the blood will take on oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Now this blood is oxygenated. it needs to return to the heart so that the heart can pump it throughout the body. The oxygenated blood travels through a pulmonary vein to the left atrium. The left atrium contracts and the blood travels through the mitral valve, also known as the bicuspid valve, into the left ventricle. The left ventricle contracts and pumps the blood through the aortic valve and out a major artery known as the aorta. The aorta is a major artery that carries oxygenated blood throughout the body. Now, I don't want to neglect the fact that the heart needs its own blood supply for delivery of oxygen and glucose. The heart can receive this blood supply through coronary arteries. Coronary arteries branch off the aorta and eventually deliver blood into capillaries. These capillaries deliver oxygen and glucose to the heart. Coronary veins will take the deoxygenated blood to the right atrium, where the blood will eventually travel the pathway to become oxygenated. In fact, to quiz yourself, can you pause the video and trace the pathway of blood?
We won't pause it, but say them out loud as they go through and see if you can get them all.
Okay, all together. Right atrium,
Tricuspid valve, right ventricle, pulmonary valve, pulmonary artery,
lungs, back through the pulmonary vein,
yep,
left atrium,
mitral valve, left ventricle,
aortic valve, aorta. Takes
There
it
you
to the
go.
body, and then it will eventually return through the vena cava back to the right atrium again. Whew, it almost makes you want to turn it into a song, but we won't. The significance of the pathways, how we interact, the coordination of contraction, and many more elements are part of every beat of your heart. A human heart beats over 100,000 times per day, so it's significant that every beat is coordinated and blood is directed where it should go. The complexity of the cardiac cycle, which is the coordinated sequence of the heart's contractions and relaxations, isn't something this short video can go into. Hopefully a separate video on that soon. One last thing. There are many conditions in which the heart doesn't function correctly. Anatomically, some heart conditions change the pathway flow of blood. One example that we had mentioned before is an atrial septal defect. The septum is the muscular wall that separates the right and left side of the heart. So a septal defect could mean an opening, and oxygen-rich blood could mix with oxygen-poor blood. Depending on the size, this can cause further problems, such as an abnormal heartbeat, stroke, or potentially heart failure in severe cases. Some medications can help the symptoms, or surgery can be an option. There continues to be more advancements for treating cardiovascular conditions. If you have interest in the amazing field of cardiology, take a look at the suggested further reading links in the video details. Well, that's it.
Yeah, ever heard of a baby being born with a hole in its heart? That's usually what they're talking about, is that it's a septal defect. And that happens because during embryologic development, it's supposed to close, and sometimes it doesn't fully close. And that usually can be corrected surgically within their first few days of life. They'll go in and fix that. And that's not uncommon. All right, so now we'll move on to respiratory system. Okay. So what kind of exchange is going on in the respiratory system? It's gas exchange, right? We have to have our gas exchange. Carbon dioxide and oxygen need to be exchanged with blood and with the air. That's what we're doing, and tissues. All right, so if we start with the nose, where is the next part of your pathway? Where is your air going when you inhale it? Through your nose into your
nasal cavity.
Yeah, nasal cavity. What we're looking for is pharynx. So your pharynx is the area, it's your throat before your throat divides into your esophagus and your trachea, right? Because you've got basically one tube and then it splits. So it's your multi-purpose tube for air, for food, for water. That's your pharynx. Where does it go from your pharynx? Trachea. It goes through your larynx into your trachea. So your larynx is your what? What's the other word for that? What is it?
Voice box.
Your voice box, right. So it's got to go through your vocal cords. So your vocal cords have to be relaxed in order for it to come through. Interesting point. If you're a vocalist and you make any noise when you're inhaling, you're doing it wrong. You are going to damage yourself. There is a fabulous live version of Ed Sheeran doing Galway Girl that I can't not hear the audible inhalations every time. And I'm like, you're about to end your career, Ed. Because every time he inhales, you hear a sound. That means he's not relaxing his cords. He's keeping them tight while he's inhaling. That's bad, dude. That's bad. All right, so through your trachea, and then where does it go next? Your trachea comes down and it divides into two what? Bronchi. bronchus on the left and a bronchus on the right, two bronchi together, and then it goes into your lungs. And as it goes into your lungs, it further branches into bronchioles. Remember, we had arterioles and venules. Now we have bronchioles. Oh, what do you know? It's like the same pattern once again, right? And then from your bronchioles, it goes to your what? What's the end point there? Do you know? Alveoli. Very good. These are these little grape cluster-like structures at the end of your bronchioles inside your lungs. And because they're shaped like that, they have tons of surface area for gas exchange. So the back of your throat, that area is called what? That kind of multi-purpose? Pharynx, right? You got your pharynx back there, and that's the back of your throat. It's your passage for both air and food. What's your voice box called again, everybody? Larynx, right? You got to go through there to get where you're going. What's the other word for windpipe? Everybody? Trachea, right? And it's covered at the top by the epiglottis. Who remembers the epiglottis from your pig? And then the frog had the glottis, right? It's that little flap that keeps stuff from going down the wrong tube, right? It closes when you swallow so that you don't inhale whatever it is you're swallowing. That could be bad. That's aspiration, right? If you get too much of that, you can get sick. You can get an infection. You get pneumonia if you inhale enough like liquid, because then your body will fight back and your lungs will flood, and that's really gross. You don't want that. All right, so you don't want food going down the wrong pipe. And then what were the two big tubes that branch off? Bronchi or bronchus for each one, right? You got it. And then they get into your lungs, into the smaller tubes, which were called, everybody, what? Bronchioles. And then the little air sacs are called alveoli. And they look like that. They look just like that, like little grape clusters, right? All right, so let's look at them close up. There's an alveoli close up. Here's one of the little sacs close up. So you see, you got a capillary coming around, and you've got a gas exchange. You got carbon dioxide on one side, oxygen on the other, and they're trying to balance. What does that sound like to you? You're trying to get a balance of the same thing on both sides of a membrane. What is that? It's similar to osmosis. Osmosis is water specifically.
Equilibrium.
We're trying to get an equilibrium, you know? We're trying to get homeostasis, kind of. Okay, so it occurs in your capillaries over your alveoli. Oxygen from your lungs diffuses into your blood. Is that a clue? Diffusion. Okay, think back. Remember the little cubes of potato? And we put them into what? What did we put them in? Iodine. What was different between each of the iodines? The concentration was different. And what did we notice? The higher concentration allowed for what? More diffusion into, you could see the color when we cut the potato open, right? What is that called? Diffusion occurs across a what? We said one of the words.
Semi-permeable?
It has to be a semi-permeable membrane, correct. But no, Jason's trying to guess. What's it called when we said the word before? It had to do with the different types of iodine. That was what? What was different? Concentration. Diffusion occurs across a concentration. Come on, it's there.
Concentration difference.
Close. Gradient. Concentration gradient. You need a concentration gradient. So the whole point is you got more oxygen in your air sac than in your blood. It's moving into your blood. You got more carbon dioxide in your blood than in your air sac. It's moving into your little air sac. Make sense? Because diffusion occurs across what? A concentration gradient. Is that active or passive? Passive. Yes. Very good. Same way osmosis works. Same situation. Remember when, like if you know somebody who's going to go get a colonoscopy, they give you that nice salty drink. What does that cause? No, it causes the concentration gradient to work. Too much salt inside the intestine, not enough salt outside the intestine, pulls water into the intestines, right? And then you spend the next day and a half in the bathroom. That's always our example because people remember that when they're like, "Ew, gross." And they remember it, right? People remember gross things. All right, what's that muscle at the base of your chest cavity that is involved in your breathing, Isabella? Your diaphragm. Okay, I want you to notice about this diagram. When your diaphragm contracts, it pulls down. You do not push air into your lungs. When your diaphragm drops, it creates a vacuum and it just sucks that air right in. That's what happens. When your diaphragm relaxes, it moves up and then it pushes the air out because now it has decreased the amount of volume you have for your lungs. Your lungs grow considerably when your diaphragm contracts. It just pulls them down and pulls in air. All right, now this lady has for you 2 sets of human lungs, real human lungs that are from cadavers that were donated, and she's set up a great apparatus that mimics how breathing works. Now, what do you suppose is the difference between these lungs, Kenna? Oh, can we tell? Yes. Now, I want you to, this is very important. I want you to notice. I want you to watch when the smoker's lungs breathe, how mostly it's the top that inflates. There's not much going on at the bottom, just a little at the top that's inflating. Okay, she's going to say this is someone who smoked for 20 years. All right, now, do we know if this person was still smoking when they died? We don't know, okay? Y'all remember when my father was in the hospital last month? Remember? Right? COPD, emphysema. My dad stopped smoking 30 years ago. His lungs only inflate at the top. 30 years he hasn't smoked, but he smoked for over 20. So although blood pressure's better, everything else is better when you stop smoking, you've already done the damage, right? Some of it can be reversed, some of it cannot. 30 years later after stopping smoking, more than 30 years, it's come back to bite him. And now he has to walk around with oxygen on his face. Don't do it. Just don't do it. If this video doesn't convince you not to do it, I don't know what will. Actually, when I was in college, I was in like a Boy Scouts Explorers program. Those are like co-ed and you can go do different careers. And mine was at the medical school. And we were looking at cadavers and they told us we would be comparing smokers' lungs to non-smokers' lungs the following week. And I dragged my best friend with me because she's a smoker. And I made her look at him. Didn't stop her, but I made her look at him anyway. She doesn't smoke anymore, but she smoked for years.
Take a look at these 2 sets of lungs. This set is pink and healthy. They represent the lungs of a healthy person. But this set doesn't look so great. They represent the lungs of someone who has smoked a pack of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes, every day for 20 years. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the healthy lungs. They're being inflated with air, just like when we breathe. As they fill up with air, both lungs expand like they should and push oxygen into your bloodstream. We need oxygen for our body to work. When we breathe, air passes through our nose or mouth into our trachea or windpipe. In the trachea, air passes cilia. Those are tiny hairs that keep dirt and mucus out of the lungs. From the trachea, air passes into 2 large tubes. Each tube splits off into many smaller tubes. At the end of these smaller tubes is a cluster of tiny air sacs. There are over 600 million air sacs in our lungs. Imagine how small they must be. Each air sac is covered in small blood vessels that take the blood directly to your heart. The oxygenated blood goes directly to your heart, and your heart pumps it to all the cells in your body. Now, back to the smoker's lungs. These represent the lungs of someone who smoked for 20 years. These lungs are a blackish brown color because of the tar that comes from each cigarette. Tar is a sticky black substance that is created when some chemicals burn and melt together. The tar created by burning tobacco is similar to the tar that is used on roads. Tar in your lungs may lead to lung problems that can make it hard to breathe. Even though vaping doesn't force tar into your lungs, it does cause your lungs to get inflamed and clogged with blood, pus, and other fluids. The chemicals in cigarettes also cause lung cancer. If you look here, lung cancers have started to form. They start in the cells that line the surface of the lungs, like this white area. The lower portion of this lung doesn't inflate. That is what lung diseases like COPD and emphysema look like. People with these diseases find it hard to breathe, and they struggle with even the smallest, easiest activities like walking. Which set of lungs would you like working for you? The choice seems pretty clear.
Got it? Don't pick them up. Just don't. And not the vaping either. We haven't even had that around long enough to have long-term studies on what it does, but I guarantee you it's not good, right? It's not good. So a hiccup. Anybody frequently hiccup? I'm a hiccuper. Yeah. A hiccup is the diaphragm contracting several times in a minute. It's a spasm in your diaphragm. Like if you ever had like a leg spasm or something else, or you ever get like a muscle that's like jumping in your abdominal wall and you're like, what is that? It's the same kind of thing. So it's a quick rush of air forces the vocal cord shut, which causes the hic sound, right? So This is gonna go over somebody who had terrible hiccups. Yeah.
Why do we hiccup when we're drunk then?
Yeah. I don't know that we hiccup more than we're drunk, but I think that's kind of a cartoon thing. But certainly, any kind of depressant like that is going to impact the way your nervous system and your muscles interact. So it absolutely could cause somebody to hiccup. Sure, why not?
That person smoked 146,096.
Yeah, you did the math on the cigarettes. Yeah. And I don't know how much a decent pack of cigarettes costs these days. I know how much the cheap ones cost because I buy them for a chemistry lab and they're still like $5. So that's expensive, huh?
$5 a day.
Or sports car.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's an expensive habit.
Cigarette?
20 in a pack, typically. Yeah. And then you can get cartons.
It's about 7,000 packs is what that person.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a whole lot. In the 60s, when my mother decided that she was going to smoke because everyone did and it was cool. And her father found out, and he was a smoker too because he was in World War II. So all they did was smoke and drink, right? That's that generation, that's what they did, right? So he took my mother out back and he bought her a carton, not a pack, a carton, right? Which is like 20 packs, I think, of unfiltered Camels, sat her down on the back steps and said, smoke them all. And if you smoke them all, I'll let you smoke. There she was. She didn't make it all the way through before she was super sick, like throwing up sick, because that will do that to you. But that was his answer to, oh, so you think you can smoke? Show me. Don't recommend that necessarily, but he also taught her her grandfather taught her how to ride a bike by putting her on the top of a hill with like a little bulkhead thing at the bottom and a lake, and said, today you're going to learn how to swim or ride a bike and let her go. That's the 40s and 50s. We don't do that anymore. Maybe we should. So that's pretty cool. One or the other.
No sugar, great taste, guaranteed.
Those are good, actually.
Ancestry help you piece together your story. Save now during our Mother's Day sale.
Charles Osborne began to hiccup in 1922 after a log fell on top of him. He wasn't cured until 68 years later and is now listed by Guinness as the world record holder for hiccup longevity. Meanwhile, Florida teen Jennifer Mee may hold the record for the most frequent hiccups, 50 times per minute for more than 4 weeks in 2007. So, what causes hiccups? Doctors point out that a round of hiccups often follows from stimuli that stretch the stomach, like swallowing air or too rapid eating or drinking. Others associate hiccups with intense emotions or our response to them, laughing, sobbing, anxiety, and excitement. Let's look at what happens when we hiccup. It begins with an involuntary spasm or sudden contraction of the diaphragm, the large dome-shaped muscle below our lungs that we use to inhale air. This is followed almost immediately by the sudden closure of the vocal cords and the opening between them, which is called the glottis. The movement of the diaphragm initiates a sudden intake of air, but the closure of the vocal cords stops it from entering the windpipe and reaching the lungs. It also creates the characteristic sound. To date, there is no known function for hiccups. They don't seem to provide any medical or physiological advantage. Why begin to inhale air only to suddenly stop it from actually entering lungs? Anatomical structures or physiological mechanisms with no apparent purpose present challenges to evolutionary biologists. Do such structures serve some hidden function that hasn't yet been discovered? Or are they relics of our evolutionary past, having once served some important purpose only to persist into the present as vestigial remnants? One idea is that hiccups began many millions of years before the appearance of humans. The lung is thought to have evolved as a structure to allow early fish, many of which lived in warm, stagnant water with little oxygen, to take advantage of the abundant oxygen in the air overhead. When descendants of these animals later moved onto land, they moved from gill-based ventilation to air breathing lungs. That's similar to the much more rapid changes faced by frogs today as they transition from tadpoles with gills to adults with lungs. This suggests that the hiccup is a relic of the ancient transition from water to land. An inhalation that could move water over gills, followed by a rapid closure of the glottis preventing water from entering the lungs. That's supported by evidence which suggests that the neural patterning involved in generating a hiccup is almost identical to that responsible for respiration in amphibians. Another group of scientists believe that the reflex is retained in us today because it actually provides an important advantage. They point out that true hiccups are found only in mammals, and that they're not retained in birds, lizards, turtles, or any other exclusively air-breathing animals. Further, hiccups appear in human babies long before birth, and are far more common in infants than adults. Their explanation for this involves the uniquely mammalian activity of nursing. The ancient hiccup reflex may have been adapted by mammals to help remove air from the stomach as a sort of glorified burp. The sudden expansion of the diaphragm would raise air from the stomach, while a closure of the glottis would prevent milk from entering the lungs. Sometimes a bout of hiccups will go on, and we try home remedies, sipping continuously from a glass of cold water, holding one's breath, a mouthful of honey, peanut butter, breathing into a paper bag, or being suddenly frightened. Unfortunately, scientists have yet to verify that any one cure works better or more consistently than others. However, we do know one thing that definitely doesn't work.
Does anybody hiccup burp? I do that. I absolutely hiccup burp. Like it's a cross between a hiccup and a burp. It's weird. Yeah. So the hiccup burp connection makes sense to me because I experience it. So
I have like overly aggressive hiccups to the point where like
they hurt. I do too. It's like, please go away. It's been 10 minutes of this and it's starting to hurt.
They always hurt like in my lungs.
It's awful.
And I don't.
What are you gonna say? Oh, you hiccup when you cough? There's a guy in my choir, a new guy in my choir at church, and he hiccups when he sings. And it's so funny to me. He's a tenor, so he'll be singing this beautiful tune like, what? Every time he does it, it cracks me up. I'm like, well, that's interesting. All right, so now we're gonna let Lucas go. Guy Lucas. We're going to go, everybody wave at Lucas, and we're going to go and we're going to take care of these quails. I'm going to give you some specific instructions. All right, Lucas, we'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right, I'm going to need a secretary.